Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I am Robbie Betalon, covering Michigan State for The Only Colors, and of course, the Pistons for Detroit Bad Boys. We are very lucky today to be joined by a special guest, Sean Murphy from the From Half Court podcast. Sean, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
What's going on, Wes? Robbie, pleasure to meet you. Have fun chatting before the pod. Excited to be here. I'm doing well. You know, it's kind of that sweet spot in the summer where I'm enjoying the rest. I've been having a lot of fun, you know, going to the theater, which we'll definitely talking about here in a second, but I'm also starting to jones for some basketball. I'm longing for some hoops and to kind of be back in the mix of things. So excited to get into it and excited to chop it up.
So I watched just like randomly I think it might have been like a 15-minute Asar Thompson defensive highlights video package from last year, just because I am also just jonesing for some basketball. I know it doesn't feel like Summer League ended all that long ago, but Summer League's just kind of like, you know, it's like a little teaspoon, it's a little morsel of basketball. It's not great, it's just enough to get you through it. And then we've got this big long gap through August and then a little bit into September. I'm counting down the days too, but you mentioned it. We're going to talk about movies, guys. This was a total accident, but look, if this is turning into a movie podcast, you can just blame the fact that it's August. But Sean, I just saw the Spider-Man movie, the newest one, for the first time on Tuesday. You told us before the show started you saw it twice. So I want all your opinions here on the newest Spider-Man movie. How did Tom Holland do? How did what were the performance? What's your review? I want the deep dive.
Yeah, first of all, shout out AMC A-List for making it possible, you know, my king. But anyway, you know, not sponsored, but if they want to be, I thought the movie was phenomenal, not giving anything away, as, you know, people mentioned in the comments. Like, if you are someone that has a love for Spider-Man, not just the Tom Holland franchise, but the games made by Insomniac, the, you know, the Spider-Man franchises with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, if you're a fan of the comics, like whatever you have put into the Spider-Man franchise up to this point, you will leave feeling satisfied for that, you know, for that commitment. And this is your entry point, then you feel excited to jump in. And I think, you know, like Marvel movie, I tweeted this the other day. I think Marvel in general, just for a franchise and like a company that, you know, has so many great characters and, you know, like compelling stories and people and like great actors to play those characters. I feel like they get so caught up in the spectacle and the scope and the scale of everything. It's like not everything has to be a huge CGI, like, you know, like cluster on my screen. Like sometimes, like, I just want to see like characters in an interesting story that have great performances and like have a compelling direction. And it's like, I also enjoy the fact that, because it feels like so many Marvel movies are just about nowadays, it's like, it's very similar to comic books where it's just, oh, well, we're just setting up the future run or the next movie. But it's, you know, you have to still make something that is enjoyable or the reason to actually go to the theater for this movie in particular. Like, I know not everything's going to be the stakes of Doomsday and Endgame and Infinity War and all that stuff, but that doesn't mean that you can't still tell a really fun story and something that's, you know, like that still feels really consequential. And, you know, I think Tom Holland like solidified himself as like the best Spider-Man in my opinion. And, you know, I'll just say this. I did bleep myself 100%. Yep. I got that on deck.
It's my
but
favorite
anyway,
thing. That's my favorite thing that you got. That's like, if for no other reason, that's the only reason that I want to keep bringing you on, Sean. Like, I love all your basketball
For the
takes.
soundboard.
The little like soundboard that you have is perfect. I love it.
I appreciate. I gotta get the full thing working, because that's literally just like a small taste of what it could do. But anyway, it just feels like this is, you know, Tom Holland. He talked about beforehand how he like really you know, like got in the writer's room and was more involved in like the production and the process of this movie. And it's like, you could just, it felt like, it didn't feel like, oh, like a fourth Spider-Man movie for the sake of a huge box office hit, which is exactly what it was. I think it literally has the second highest opening ever for a film or something crazy like that, or the highest opening week. It's whatever it is, it's doing crazy numbers, but it feels like a labor of love and not a movie that was made for the sake of a cash grab. There still is the Marvel setup stuff, but I feel like that's tied in really well and actually has a purpose. So overall, like I give it like an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's incredible. I don't know if it's the best Spider-Man movie. I'm pretty biased. I think the Spider-Verse movies are like near perfection, but
the animated one's very, very good.
But of the live action,
Yeah, those are great.
Right. Yeah, of the live action movies, this is right up there at the top. You could tell me 3 or 4 of those are your favorite, and I couldn't blame you for it.
Yeah, I think from my end, I've been slacking since Endgame and trying to like keep up with the Marvel universe.
I haven't given you a reason to.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I've been trying to watch like Multiverse of Madness. I just watched Shang-Chi. I just watched, and I was like, okay, they're not, getting me out of my seat and getting me all excited to keep watching. And I was like, okay, I'm at least checking them off the list. I'm keeping the Marvel universe going. But going to see this new Spider-Man movie, I felt like I saw a brand new Spider-Man movie. I liked the like pulls to comics that it had. Without spoiling too much, plenty of new characters that at least I haven't seen. I know that there are some shows out there that feature some of them. But I loved the movie. Sean, out of the 4 Tom Holland movies, are you putting this one at the top? Because I think I do. Right before, there would be Toby and Andrew coming in with that one, but I put this at the top for me.
Yeah, this is definitely the best Spider-Man movie that Tom Holland's made. I think people forget the other thing about No Way Home was like that was so fresh out of the pandemic that was really the first time that a lot of us are really able to gather in that type of setting. And don't get me wrong, the nostalgia things were incredible.
Nostalgia was great, yeah.
Right? Like there will be.
It's just not great on rewatch,
That's exactly where I was going.
You can watch it once.
The experience opening weekend was euphoric in theater,
right?
But it's a hard watch at home when you realize that you're trying to pause for applauses when it's like, I'm not clapping on my couch. Like those, I don't think those things were fully factored in when the film was made. So it's like, for those reasons alone, it's like, yeah, I would say this is the best one.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I did really love the first one that Tom Holland did. Like, you're talking about small stakes. It doesn't get much smaller than that. And it's just kind of a fun little high school drama Spider-Man. It was fun. It was unique. But
the moment Michael Keaton answers the door is still one of the best Marvel twists of the last decade. Like it's
so great.
Gold. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. But ultimately, I think before I can really just willingly give Tom Holland the crown as the best Spider-Man, guys, I think I need to see him get decked out in some like black leather and do kind of a weird looking dance down the streets of New York. And until we get to that, I think it's still got to be Toby.
I think this, you see, the thing is though, is that unlike Toby, like no offense to Toby, but I feel pretty confident in saying that I don't think Tobey Maguire has any professional dance training. Whereas Tom Holland,
think you're safe on that.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident saying that. I don't know why, but I just do. Whereas Tom Holland, that's where he came from. That's that's like Bane's, like you say, darkness is your ally. Like I was born in it. Like that's Tom Holland, but with dance. So
you're telling me he could actually make that scene look good in Spider-Man 3?
Yeah, I just got into doing the Bane voice.
Remember his umbrella dance or performance that he did? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
when Lip Sync Battle was a show.
That was hilarious. Yeah.
He's definitely a dancer. All right, Sean, one more movie question, because I hyped it up on one of our shows. Then Wes went and saw it afterwards and he hyped it up. He said it was the best movie that he's seen since Dune. Have you seen The Odyssey?
Oh, of course. I saw it in 70 millimeter.
Oh yeah,
IMAX,
the real deal.
Yeah, so I will acknowledge my bias up here at the top. Like I've been a Nolan head ever since I saw The Dark Knight opening weekend in IMAX.
Okay,
like that first scene is like that. That's like just one of my favorite movie going experiences.
Best movies ever. One of the best movies ever, in my opinion.
Right, yes. And then he just follows it up with banger after banger. But it's like this just like. it sounds snobby to say it this way, but like it just feels like an achievement. Like it just feels like, like to take like that big of a swing, to do all of these huge like practical effects and all of the crazy ways that this film was made. And it's like you have all like these huge stars on screen together that outside of a Marvel crossover event, we really haven't seen in a movie like this together. And to take a story like the Odyssey that's like so well known, that has like, like such like a reverence, but also it's a story that's been told so many times. And quite frankly, I think a lot of us growing up having to read it in school find the Odyssey boring. And I think there's like a natural kind of like, are we sure you want to do the Odyssey? Like, is this like the direction you want to go? But it's like, once you see the movie and once you see like where he's going with it, you understand exactly why this was the movie he made after Oppenheimer. And, it's been an incredible year for movies, but I just have a hard time envisioning anything beating this in Best Picture when it comes time to award it. Like, it was just that, like, Matt freaking Damon, man, like,
killed
awesome. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
All right, one quick question here, and then we'll move on to some Piston stuff. We do have some good questions.
We'll talk basketball. We promise.
It might be a stretch, but we're gonna give it a go.
We're gonna try.
It sounds like you watch a lot of movies.
Yep.
You go to the movies often. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So, we're kind of talking about the big heavy hitters, right? We talked about the Odyssey. We talked about the Spider-Man movie. Has there been something smaller that maybe not a lot of people have seen that you've watched that you're saying like, hey, with your free time here, with the time you have before the season starts, which I guess, by the way, good time to bring up this little haiku from ABW17 in the TVB comments. It says, in August lament, summer rains, they come and go. But worse, there's no hoops. Agreed. So in this time with no hoops,
beautiful.
What movies should people be watching? Is there maybe an unsung hero out there right now?
Yes, there is. I have to find the name of this movie because this is going to drive me absolutely crazy. So there was this movie that came out in the fall that was, or like in the winter, and it was essentially, it's about it's like a horror movie, but it's like a psychological thriller and horror set in like a kid's like swimming class, like a summer school type thing where people go, and it's like it's with like 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, but it's terrifying. And like the villain is like this little 9-year-old kid, but he's like one of the most menacing villains I've seen in a movie in like a long time. And it's driving me crazy. And I feel so bad that this is my answer and I'm forgetting the name of it right now. I feel like I'm such a fake for that. I'm going to have to pull up my letterbox real quick and pray that I reviewed it on there.
As you do that, Sean, I've got 2 horror movies because we're going the horror direction. I watched Backrooms recently. Now that that's out on streaming services, that was fantastic. Oh no, I forgot the Obsession. Obsession was another great horror movie that I have watched recently. Both of those were very good.
I found it, by the way. It's called The Plague.
Hey, Ryan Anton called that. Look at that.
Yep.
He knew.
One of the best movies I saw last year that I don't think a whole lot of people talked about. Like legitimately, like it was scary. It was like terrifying. It's like one of those movies where your anxiety is just going to be up to a 10 the entire time.
That's what Backrooms got me with. That's how I felt with Backrooms.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you haven't seen The Plague, watch The Plague. It's really good. Essentially, now that I remember the name, they essentially like they have this thing called The Plague, and it's like, like how kids are like, oh, they have cooties, stay away from him, like because he has like there's like one kid where they say he has the plague. And if you touch him, it's like they essentially like ostracize you and all this stuff. And so it's like a psychological horror with how mean and cruel kids can be. It's like really, really good.
All right.
Anyway,
I'm adding it to the list.
All right, Caleb here. He asked if I've watched Backrooms. Guys, I'll confess here. I am a wimp. I am just horror movies are not my scene at all. And it's for 2 reasons. One, as I said, I am genuinely a wimp. So like there's no middle ground with horror movies. This is how I explain it to people. If a horror movie's genuinely scary, I'm out. Like I don't want to see it. It'll keep me up all night. I'll lose sleep. I'll have no fun. And if it's just like, the stupid like slasher horror movies that aren't really scary, but some people find entertaining, anyway, because they're kind of outlandish and crazy. They're just so dumb that I point out all the holes in it, and then I'm not having a good time either. So there's no middle ground for horror movies for me. Like, you could say thrillers, but I like thrillers. Those aren't horror movies. Those are just kind of suspenseful movies, right? It's a little bit different. I can't, if it's actually scary, I can't watch it. If it's not actually scary, I don't want to watch it.
It might be more of a thriller. It might be more of a thriller.
Backrooms doesn't really have a whole lot of jump scares or horror.
Not at all. That's what gets me.
It's really kind of more of like, if anything, it's just kind of like weird gore stuff or just like bizarre. Like, it's just a bizarre movie.
Suspenseful.
Yeah. I liked it a lot, but
very good movie.
I'll tell you this, Wes. I was the same.
Very good movie.
Okay.
I was the same for the longest time, but then I think it was around like 2016. It just got to a point where slowly, like, all the good movies that come out are either some form of superhero cinematic universe film or it's a horror movie. And there's really nothing in between anymore. So it's like, well, I'm just going to have to start liking horror movies. Yeah. So if you want a good introduction and like start dipping your toe, watch Get Out.
Get Out.
Another great movie.
Oh, I haven't watched it because I figured it was actually scary.
Movies.
Same thing with Don't Look Up. I haven't watched it.
Yep, Jordan.
That one's not scary.
Well, because it's like the thing that's cool about, like, it's like they're still scary, but at the same time, like, since it's Jordan Peele, there's things about it that are still just freaking hilarious. So you'll have a really good time.
I'm a little
maybe
afraid,
some exposure therapy, Wes.
Yeah, one per week. He can come back to the podcast and tell us how it went. Yeah.
This is the thing. Like, I don't believe in acquired tastes either. It's like, if I don't like it right away, I'm not gonna like it. Why bother? Why put in the work? If it's not good, it's not good. Everything I like now, like coffee, I liked it the first time I had it. Beer, same thing. Liked it the first time I had it. Whiskey, liked it the first time. If I got to work for it, I'm not. So it's the same philosophy with horror movies. I don't like them. I don't want to figure it out. I'm too much of a wimp. I'll be totally honest. Yeah, Michael Donovan, Get Out, very good thriller. Yeah, okay. Well, the original Scary Movie, that was a really scary movie. That's fair.
Scary movie, like the
those
comedy
are funny.
Scary Movies.
Yeah. I was joking. Yeah, those are hilarious. I love those. Those are really good. Yeah, man, I used to watch Psych, and some of those would even get bridge into horror, and even that sometimes was a bit much for me. Let's talk about basketball instead of just talking about how terrible I am.
It's only fair.
About watching fearful movies. We got this first one here from Gregory Wagner in our DBB comments, and we did have a couple of these asking about Peyton Watson. I think it kind of makes sense, right? Peyton Watson's probably the last relatively big name that's out there on the market right now. Played with the Denver Nuggets last year. So Gregory Wagner asks, since Tari Eason got less salary than we expected and Peyton Watson may only get somewhere around the mid-level exception, shouldn't the Pistons try to pay the Nuggets 2 first-round pick price for Watson on a cheaper deal? So Sean, we'll just throw it over to you. What do you think about the fit there and the rumored price for a player like Peyton Watson?
I think 2 first-round picks personally is pretty steep, especially when you look at the way that the first-round pick protections are changing, the way that you look at the lottery system is changing. Like, I think you've already seen teams like a lot more hesitant to trade first-round picks, but it's like, I think, you're going to just see even more of that now. I don't get me wrong. I really like Peyton Watson as a player. He brings a lot of things to the table that would be, great in a Pistons uniform. I do think he's a guy that's like only going to continue to ascend. He did miss almost 30 games last year. And the reality of it is like, I still think Denver is going to really want to figure out a way to bring him back. So it's like, unless you're willing to like either pay him in a fashion that you're not, like that Denver wouldn't be comfortable in paying, and also being willing to just meet a price where they just can't say no, then, that would really be the only way I could see it happening. And again, I get fans are like, oh, well, when are you going to take the big swing? But it's like, I just don't know if Peyton Watson's the guy that you take that type of swing for. So, it is kind of tough right now too. It's like, just because I do think with the looming Duran situation, I think you also have to hang on to assets as well, just because of, I'm not saying they're going to move them or anything's coming, but you just really have to keep your options available when you have something like that looming. So I think
I
that's
also
part of why
think-
you're not hearing much aggression.
With Denver, so they matched. I think it was Isaac Jones is his name, who the offer sheet came from OKC, so they just matched his offer, and then they just picked up Lonnie Walker like a day or two ago. So I know their tax bill keeps like going crazy right now.
Right.
So I also think they probably want to get off Zeke Najee's deal, or I also think if Peyton Watson is leaving in a sign and trade, I don't think Denver wants to take any more money back. So, like,
Right.
from a roster standpoint for Detroit, I don't see a world in which we take Peyton Watson and do it in a way without Spencer Jones. Thank you. And I just don't think our roster is set up to take on a contract without giving. Yes, Isaac Jones is a Piston. That's where that came from. I just don't think Detroit is in a situation to take a contract on that is going to be the size of Peyton's without giving anything back to Denver. So I think just with Denver's money situation too, that's such a mess that it's hard to see a world where we can take Peyton Watson on without giving any money back to Denver at the same time. So I like the idea, but more and more into the offseason, from a mathematics standpoint, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and just not to turn this into a math podcast or anything, but like the Pistons literally cannot, right? They cannot actually take back
Also
a reasonable Peyton Watson deal without sending out salary. So you could say, well, sure, they could send out a Duncan Robinson. Maybe. Yeah, that's true. And he's got only part of that guaranteed. But even that, why exactly would Denver want to do that other than just for the salary purposes? The Spotrac right now has the Pistons with negative 18 million cap space. And that's obviously including Jalen Duren's hold, which right now is at just under 20 mil. So in order to sign Peyton Watson without taking anything back, you just have to renounce Jalen Duren's restricted free agency rights. That's not something that you want to do. That doesn't make much sense at all. So the other constraint right now
Stewart,
is that,
by the way.
What's it?
I'm sorry. I was just saying, especially when you trade Isaiah Stewart, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you can't run Paul Reed out there as your plan A at center. That would just be, I love Paul Reed, but that's a bit too much. The only thing I was going to add, they're only about 55 million underneath the first apron, which they are for cap reasons at the moment that we don't need to go into, hard capped at, as far as I understand it. So even if you say, I want to bring in Peyton Watson, and if you understand that Jalen Duren's probably going to be getting somewhere in the realm of like, we'll just call it 35, the most you could give the Peyton Watson is 20. And at that price, you'd figure Denver's probably not letting him go. He wants more than that, right? So
I would agree with YouTube user here that in order to make the money work, I think you would basically have to send Duncan Robinson to a third team and probably picks to Denver to where they don't have to take anything back. And I just think when you have your own restricted free agent where you're already struggling to get him under contract, to go get involved with another restricted free agent, I don't know if that would send a bad message to Duren too, but it just, if you're doubling up on restricted free agency, it just is, I just think it's too messy for anything to get done.
Yeah. So related to this, we had a unnamed caller leave us quite a few questions in the voicemail, and whatever your name is, sorry you didn't leave it. Would love to call you out by name here, so apologies for that. But they were just a little bit too long, so we tried to say, you could leave the voicemail, try to keep it around a minute long. Both of these together combined to about 4 minutes. So we apologize, we can't play it, but we did listen to it, and these were good questions. So related to this Peyton Watson thing, our unnamed caller here, they asked, why don't the Pistons make a play for Peyton Watson, which we kind of talked about, and then said they have the cap space in the first round picks. So are the Pistons being needlessly conservative? Well, we kind of talked about the cap space. We talked about the first round picks. I think the more interesting question here is this last part, right? Are the Pistons being needlessly conservative, Sean? What do you think? Is this just kind of a product of Duren's restricted free agency, or sorry about my daughter. She's down here on the left, and she wanted to make her voice heard here on the podcast.
She thinks they're needlessly conservative.
That might be it. That really might be it. But Sean, what do you think?
She hears draft capital and just cries.
Yeah.
I think that I think two things can be true of. I think that the Pistons made good moves while in a point where they're definitely going to be looking at this summer, like, like when going into the postseason, unless they do anything at the deadline, unless they get more aggressive, I do think they're going to be asking themselves if they've been needlessly conservative. I think when you look like reportedly at the names that they've gone after, I think they clearly have a target and they understand exactly like what they're going after and what they need, like like whether it's the Kevin Durant's, the Austin Reeves, the world, the Kyrie Irvings, like they clearly understand like the caliber player that they want to get if they couldn't go out and like make that acquisition. The problem is it takes two to tango. And I think, you have to be able to do it at a price that makes sense for both sides, especially if you're Detroit. You don't want to spend any more than what Houston just spent to go get Kevin Durant, like you really want to, and I'm sure Houston wants to really allow that situation to unfold before, they'd be more open to a dialogue about moving him at a reasonable deal. And a guy like, some of these other guys too, it's like, there's reasons why they haven't been moved yet. And so it's like, I don't think it's from like a lack of trying. Like I clearly think the Pistons have identified guys they want to go after, but it's like to that point, it's like, I just don't think they've seen the right deal that works for them, because again, you have to factor in the Duren, like whatever number you want to lock in Duren and Asar both on, moving forward. You have to factor in, just like what you actually want the roster to be beyond this season, because the name of the game in this modern NBA, like you hear it all the time, it's flexibility. The reason why Boston moves a Jaylen Brown and does it when the return package looks disgusting is because they would rather take the bad PR and everything that came with it than not have the flexibility within the salary cap to move their team moving forward. Like if that, like James Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, the team that just won the title, all they had to do to keep their team together this summer was sign Mitchell Robinson and go over the second apron. He compared it to like a suicidal thing to do as an organization, just to tell you like where teams are at and how they think about it. So do I think the Pistons, might be overly cautious? Perhaps. I think a lot of teams are right now, but at the same time, I think it's like, if you want to go out and if we're going back to the Marvel thing and you think of the Doctor Strange analogy where it's like 13 million scenarios, but it's the one that you're shooting for. I think it's like, I think Trajan will know exactly when that deal is up. Like, I think they know exactly who they want to go to, but it's like, maybe, a certain Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars need to stop asking 3 or 4 first-round picks for Trey Murphy and maybe decide what they want to do. Maybe, just a hypothetical thing like that,
Yeah, Joe, help out your previous organization, man. Throw us a bone here. Sean, I completely agree. I don't think it has anything to do with like the effort not being there, because it definitely seems like the effort is there. But I think one thing that has kind of been nice or different about this front office is it seems like they're very patient and they like have their price and they stick to it. So I still think Trey Murphy would be a fantastic fit on this team, but I also think Trey Murphy would probably be on any team if his price was reasonable, right? Like Warriors tried to reach out about him. Boston, I think, was another team. Obviously, Detroit did. So I think one thing that's difficult with where Detroit is in kind of as they're building their core, as they're building their future, is like, if you're going to pay during this offseason, which we all think is coming, and then you're also going to extend Asar with the draft capital that Detroit has, they have no extra first-round picks. So if you are going to let it rip, if you're going to let, 2 to 3 first-round picks fly, it's got to be the right move. Like, you have to be 100% convinced that, like, this is the missing piece and we're finally going to go for it. And if Trajan and his front office, felt like all summer so far that nobody has met the price that they have been willing to spend, I'm not going to blame them for not going all in this summer. And if they just want to get as much shooting as possible around Cade, Asar, and Duren and see how that goes until February, to where, let's go back to the movie thing again. Maybe you don't want to pay to see Trey Murphy in the theater, but you'll wait for Trey Murphy to come out on streaming services when he's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Not a perfect analogy, but I tried to relate it back
Trey
to
Murphy's the new Jumanji sequel. You'll wait to see that at home.
Yes.
I was just waiting for you to drop DVD and VHS, and I was gonna say,
I
"Oh no,
almost-
Robbie, we're way
I
past
almost.
that. Way
Coming
past
soon
that."
to DVD.
Come on DVD. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Related question, and then I'm going to kick this over to you because I'm almost certain that's kind of where you're going to go, Sean. But talking about some of the former Pistons GMs, right? So the same unnamed caller mentioned Joe Dumars, Troy Weaver, Trajan Lane, and all of them were, according to the caller, relatively gun shy about trading first round picks. And I think that's kind of where you're heading, talking more about the value of the first round pick. So, Sean, like, why? One, were these past GMs, I would like to note that we've skipped over Stan Van Gundy, which I find a little humorous. But were those GMs a little bit gun shy? And then secondarily, the value of first round picks right now, you kind of already talked about the hesitation of going into the second apron. Why does that kind of kick over to making these first round picks even more desired by even a team like, say, New Orleans, who kind of has none? They want to get everything back, right? That's why they're working so hard.
Yeah. So kind of addressing these like piece by piece, I think it's fair to question the aggression of some of these GMs at times. With Joe Dumars, I would point out that part of his tenure was the transition of ownership and the sale of the team, the death of Mr. Davidson. And there was like a 2-year period where he was kind of told, where he was kind of told to, like save money, like there wasn't really like a license to go out and spend aggressively. And it's like Joe Dumars has been aggressive. It's just the problem is his aggression was, like at the beginning was great, going and getting Rashid and, going and getting Ben Wallace. Like a lot of these moves he made at the beginning were great. It was the aggression at the end that killed him. It was the going out and getting, it was going out and getting, like the Charlie Villanuevas and Ben Gordons and Allen Iverson.
Josh Smith.
Don't say
Brandon Jennings.
Yep. It wasn't, I would say, like, there just wasn't always like a calculated plan, which is exactly where I would go with Troy Weaver as well. I would say, like, Troy Weaver was aggressive when there was a prospect that he wanted and he had to move up to get him. Otherwise, when it came, like, he is great at the scouting piece. He knows exactly what he wants. And it's like, even in New Orleans, like, I think some of the players he's drafted, I'm intrigued by like what Darren Queen could be. Do I think he's in the right situation to develop? Absolutely not. But that's a different conversation. But it's really just the fact that, like, what you hear about the Troy Weaver regime is too many cooks in the kitchen, a lot of people with different opinions, not an overarching voice with a clear, clear vision. And you saw that discombobulation and, like lack of organization really play out in that massive losing streak season. And the big difference with like Trajan is he's a lot more pragmatic. You think, he's very, very thoughtful. Like, even like you see him at press conferences, he always, before he answers, always takes a second and pauses before he thinks, before he says what he's going to say. And, it's like the most emotion I've ever seen him like ever display is like he laughed like it's something I said one time. Otherwise, it's just very, just very stoic. So it's like, all that to say, I think the reason why Trajan is being more like is being careful with his hand is a completely different reason than Weaver and Dumars. Because whereas Weaver and Dumars, sometimes I think they wondered what the game was, what the rules were, what exactly they should be playing, and what they're even trying to build towards. Whereas like with Trajan, it's like he's coming in under this massive, like cap system that every team in the league is trying to come to grips with right now.
Yeah, Dumars here. I don't know that I would call Joe Dumars gun shy. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Pistons fan mentioned it with the Sheed trade. He did give up Chauncey. He meant all the people that Wes had mentioned that he signed. I would not call him gun shy. I don't know that even I would call Troy Weaver gun shy. I guess maybe in the later years, but like his first draft, he made, he got 3 different players out of that, right? Stu, Sadiq, and Killian. We had that one first round pick that we held the protections for like 4 years until it finally conveyed. And I wonder though, if we would get this question, if we were talking at this point next summer, I'm not sure we're having the same conversation about Langdon. I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Until we see that basically. And I do want to point out, I think it was Michael Dompier. He had an interesting question with. I just think this point is very good. So I noticed this recently that Abuka Okori I think is going to make like kind of going to make Sasser money basically, where it's like $4 to $5 million, and it's like I'm going back. I feel like I'm relating this to the NFL where it's like, oh, you got Jahmyr Gibbs on a rookie contract still, like you want to play, or it's like if you draft a rookie quarterback and you can build the team around a rookie quarterback with such a small salary. I feel like this is similar to where if you can get an impactful player in the 20s that's only making $5 million per year, that also would be huge down the line for team building as well.
Well, and if you want to talk about longevity, to kind of go back to like the question of why first round picks are viewed so differently, why teams in this current era are so afraid to give them up, is because if you want to extend your window, you have to hit in the draft and you have to supplement outgoing talent with incoming draft acquisitions. Like Oklahoma City, for example, they traded Lou Dort, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, just to name a few players this summer because their tax bill, came due. And because of that, they went out and people have asked, well, why is Oklahoma City not just like banked all of their picks to go get Giannis or insert name of star here to become a super dynasty? Well, it's because if you want to actually do this, the right way and to have this last a long time, it's like you have to be able to replace those good rotation players with more high value, more like good value draft picks. And so they went and got guys this summer in the draft, that have a really good chance of helping them in the interim or long term, and can at the very least slot in and like not that they're going to fill the Lou Dort role or any of these guys right away. Like there's going to be a noticeable difference, but it's like, can you stay good enough to still be in contention and still be in a similar spot you were last year? Like that's the real battle. So like for the Pistons, it's like in order to be able to like, if you really want to talk about how they can maximize the Cade, Asar, Duren era, you have to draft and get quality rotation pieces. To your point, it's like if Abuka Okori even if he just becomes a really good sixth man, like if he becomes like Jamal Crawford, that's a massive win. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's really just about like the secret to success in this league is you have to really get a lot more value than what you're actually paying guys. And that's why they're having these really difficult conversations with Duren and his camp. That's why they're holding firm, is because they know if you want to do it right, you have to really nail down how you use your resources.
Yep.
So speaking of Duren, we got the last one here from our mystery callers, basically asking, is Jalen Duren really worth that rumored like $35 to $40 million in salary for average annual value when he got outplayed in the playoffs here by Jarrett Allen and Wendell Carter Jr.? He can't hit threes like Sengun. And also this one surprised me. I did look this up, confirmed. Alperen Sengun blocked more shots last year than Jalen Duren. It was about, if memory serves, about 30 or so more block shots. Also had more steals. So, Sean, is he actually worth it? Yeah, I know. It was almost the same number of games, too. Near as enough as makes no difference. I think Sengun was 72, Duren was 70.
Okay.
I think, like, don't get me wrong, the playoff performance was abhorrent. I've been as loud as anyone as far as, like, you have to have honest conversations about what you're going to pay Duren. I do think we're maybe going a little too far the other way of like, I think we have to remember that he did make all NBA for a reason. And there were a lot of like super intriguing developments. Like, don't get me wrong, the defensive side of the ball still 100% has to be better. I think a lot of times instinctually, he's just not always in the right place. He can get distracted by looking at the ball or, not looking at the right place. And, a lot of times he can get taken advantage of on backdoor cuts because he's just not paying attention to his guy well enough, right? Like we've seen a lot of like situations where Duren just is making a defensive mistake or making an error. But when Duren's been at his best this season, he's looked as dominant as any center in the league. Like the things that, like, as far as his upside and his potential, the things that he can do night in, night out, even if he can be 80% of that in the postseason, that gives the Pistons a much better chance of winning. And so don't get me wrong. Like, I think you have to hold your ground. And like, to me, 40 to 42 would be the absolute most I would be willing to go. And some of that is going to have to be a bet on his development, both mentally, but also just, like with other aspects of his game. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of the offensive stuff was great during the regular season, but there would even be moments where it's like, is that handle tight enough come playoff time? Like, when the space is really going to close in on him. And mind you, this was also the first time he went into a postseason where he was high on the scouting report,
100%.
where it was imperative to shut down Jalen Duren, because otherwise, who else is your secondary ball handler? And if you're going to pay Duren like that, you're making the bet that, like, hey, he can still be a secondary or tertiary ball handler on a team that can win a championship or contend for it. And so, like, yeah, I think it's like, as much as you feel bad for Duren in the summer he's been through, and as much as you hate seeing conversations get uncomfortable, it's like, I know I couldn't unsee what I saw in the postseason, even with all those good things said. And so I think that's just where there has to be a little bit of reality. And so I wonder if there's like some form of compromise where they can get like a 3-year deal with a player option on the third, or, something almost like how like the Jalen Green contract was like constructed by Houston, where it's like, hey, we can still get you paid, but we can also get you a window towards free agency and get you another bite at the apple, but also gives us another chance to evaluate. I could see some form of deal like that being placed, because one thing I can tell you right now, I think it would, if I'm in Jalen Duren's corner, I would be screaming at him if he even thinks about taking the qualifying offer. That would be the dumbest gamble you could possibly take as a player. I just would boggle my mind.
Yeah, I would be shocked if he took the QO. He would be the first NBA player to turn down more than, 150, 175 million if it's a 5-year total. But Sean, I completely agree with your synopsis of the playoffs, of like, this was the first time in his career that he's been specifically game planned against, to where like both teams, Orlando and Cleveland, were taking away that Cade and Duren pick and roll and just making us go elsewhere with it. I do think, though, with him having this experience, it just opens up the opportunity for him to develop counters to that. Wes and I have talked about his face-up game, around the free throw line or at the elbow. If he can do a little jab step and maybe have a little midi that he can develop, if he can have, if he wants to, dribble into the paint and they cut him off, what can his counter be? Can he have a little spin shot that he can hit? I will say, in regards to this question specifically, with Sengun shooting more threes, or it says he can't shoot threes like Sengun. Sengun shot 30% this year. And if Jalen Duren is going to shoot 30% from three, I don't want him shooting any threes whatsoever. And I want him offensive rebounding right next to the basket. I want him to be within dunking distance. If he's going to shoot as poorly as Sengun has shot, then I'm just like not interested in him turning into a shooter. But I'm fully on board with like, keep giving him the ball, keep letting him face up, keep giving him more opportunities as kind of being that secondary playmaker, develop those counters into the regular season, so that, when playoff time comes around, he's had enough experience if he's going to see that kind of a defense again.
Ask Houston Twitter if they're happy with how Alperen Sengun performed in the playoffs this last season. Shot 12% from three in the playoffs.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know it was that bad. I also will.
It was not a good playoff for centers, just league wide. It really wasn't. I mean, even Jokic had a couple of stinkers.
Yeah. To make this even worse, by the way, 12% from three on 1.3 attempts per game. So like, he wasn't even shooting it that much, and he just wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same throughout the season. He was at 1.8 throughout the season. So yeah, if we expect Duren to start shooting, I don't need him to immediately go out to the 3-point land. He flashed some things, in the mid-range. So I would love, if he does have to develop a counter, turn that mid-range into a little bit of a threat. If you're dribbling and they cut you off on your way to the paint, develop a counter from there. I also just want to see him become kind of a better playmaker. He definitely became a better scorer in this past year. But I remember the New York Knicks series in round 1 2 years ago, him being a short roll passer to hitting Asar in the dunker spot, or he's going to have more shooting around him. I'm on board with both giving Asar and Duren like as many on ball and playmaking opportunities as they can get, in the regular season through those first 50 games or whatever it is until February. And I think you reevaluate then to kind of see how they both have done with the most shooting that they have had around them in their entire career so far. So at least some more spacing will be there, but I'm excited to see kind of how they both can grow as secondary playmakers. And then you determine, do you need to still go get that guy, or what do you need at February from there? So
as much as we love Tobias, and as much as that's going to be a big loss, I think what John Collins brings as far as the, not only the spacing from beyond the arc, but the vertical spacing too. It's like now there's more than one pick and roll threat and a lob threat that teams are going to have to contend with. So in theory, you would hope that more easy looks are coming Duren's way. That would, just make the game come more natural to him as well. So you would think things like that will take some pressure off of his plate, so to speak.
Right.
All right. Well, speaking of Jalen Duren, we're going to start off with the Jalen Duren if-then question just because it's fun. So we're going to do a little fun game here to end out the show, guys. It's going to be called if-then. So the premise is either Robbie or I, we're going to say a statement. We're going to say, suppose the season ended tomorrow and this happened. So whatever it is, it could be good, could be bad, could be kind of neutral. Then the rest of us, whoever's not asking the question, they have to kind of fill in the blank, right? So if X, then Y. What would Y have to be? That's the premise here. So, guys, let's just start off with the Jalen Duren one. So if Jalen Duren earns another All-NBA honor, then, Sean, what had to have happened this season for JD?
I think if he were to earn another All-NBA nod, he would have had to have taken a significant leap on both sides of the floor, because I think if there's anyone that he's going to have to convince again that he, how good he is, it's the voting populace and it's the people within the media sphere. Because right after, the All-NBA voting is when the playoffs happened, and there are a lot of voters that look and felt really, that think they looked and felt really stupid for voting him an All-NBA after the playoff performance that he had. So statistically, if he goes out and has the same type of season as he had last year, I think voters, whether this is fair or not, would have that in the back of their head, and I think would begin to question the legitimacy of his case. If he were to take that jump that we talked about on the defensive side of the floor, if he were to become one of the league's better rim protectors, if he were to, solidify himself, he's a good rebounder, but if he continued to become a great rebounder and, kind of take more steps in those areas, I could see a world where, where he's in that conversation, if he just becomes a true interior dominant force. But I think he's really going to have to work for it. And I think he's going to have to showcase areas of his game that we haven't seen before, because whether fair or not, I think he's going to have a harder hill to get there than other players because of the bad taste in voters' mouths that he left with this playoffs.
I'm gonna go at this from a roster management kind of perspective instead
Gibbs
of
just got the bag, by the way.
Who did?
Jameer Gibbs. He just got the bag.
Oh, he did just get paid? Okay,
Yep.
good.
3 years.
Good. Love that.
3 years, 75.7 with 51.5 guaranteed.
Okay.
Does that make him the highest paid?
Yeah, just beat Bijan Robinson.
Good for Gibbs. That's fun.
Yep.
I'm gonna look at this from a roster perspective, or kind of like from a Trajan perspective. If Jalen Duren made another All-NBA team, I'm gonna say that they did not. Then would be my thinking of they were sold on Duren as that number 2 guy. He's continued to be. He's continued to prove that he can carry the load as the second scoring option, as kind of being that secondary hub when Cade can't generate a shot. We're going to go to Duren and see if Duren can make something happen. So I'm going to tweak this a little bit instead of saying, what's going on in the court. But I also say, I don't think if Jalen Duren makes another All NBA team, I don't think they made any big deals during the season then, and they kind of just rode with what their roster looked like, and JD is basically that second guy again all season.
Yeah, I was just going to add in real quick, and Michael Dompier brings up a good point. So if Duren is All NBA, it also probably means the Pistons were around a 55 win team. I think that'd probably be true. I think, similar to the line you were going to draw there, Robbie, like he's not only the de facto second option, which he was last year, he's also now, looking at this roster, kind of the de facto second playmaker. So I think that's the path, right? Like if Jalen Duren plays well enough with ball handling duties, like he's going to be a ball in the hand playmaker for himself and others. He has to be, because there's really, other than maybe a Sar Thompson or a rookie in Abuka Okori or a really second year player in Dana Streakins, like there's not a lot of options, at least not high profile ones. Duren's actually got, weird enough as it is to say, kind of the best track record of all four of those guys for making plays with the ball in his hands as of right now. So if that's where it's going to go offensively for him, and he like suddenly he's just a high volume isolation guy out of the mid post, and it looks really good, I could see that. So, maybe a few more points per game, but also like 3 or 4 assists.
Yeah, if we go back to the Sengun question, the Alperen Sengun question, he averaged 6 assists per game. I don't know if Duren's going to get to that, but like a 4 or 5, I think would be really something that could get him there. And also defensively, like, can he make a leap defensively? I'm not totally sure. Agreed, YouTube user. I'm not totally sure if he can make that jump defensively, but all right, Sean, I'm going to give you another one. So in this scenario, we get to the end of the season and Abuka Okori has made all rookie first team. What would have to happen for Abuka Okori to make all rookie first team?
I think he would have to become one of the most like consistent off the bench guards, like right away, or one of the more consistent off the bench guards as far as scoring output. And I think the big thing that they've talked about a lot with Abuka Okori is not only liking his playmaking ability, but his ability to make plays without turning over the basketball. He's a guy who, I'll be honest with you, I did not watch Summer League with as much intent as I did the Cade Cunningham years, or, when we were in a different era of this team. But the things that really stood out to me, because when I watch Summer League, I don't look at results. I look at traits. I look at things that I think can transfer over to the league. I look at characteristics and how guys instinctually act, because when you're in a summer league aspect like that, you're just playing off of instinct. So the thing that really stood out to me about Abuka, other than the fact that he obviously has a lot of tools in his bag and a lot of things in his arsenal as far as like being able to create separation and like intriguing things from a scoring standpoint, it's the effort he puts in to always make the good pass, like making a pass easier by getting closer to a teammate and doing little things like that to where he's not going to have many turnovers in the turnover column. And if he did, it's probably not going to be his fault. So I think the thing like about Abuka is he's going to have to come in, and it's almost going to have to be like a Ryan Nembhard type campaign, but like more kind of like extended over the course of a season, to where he's someone where it's like, if he were to make like all rookie first team, it's like if he were to make it like that, he would probably have to be like the one of, if not the best player off of the Pistons bench. Because especially if you're thinking first team all rookie in this really deep class, he's going to have to make a statement and then some.
That's where I was going to go too, Sean, because like with this rookie class, and with all the rookie awards, you're kind of dealing with a points per game award. That's usually what it is. The only exception to that rule is if you had a really big role on a very successful team. You could look at like the Scotty Barnes thing, right, with this rookie of the year campaign. I think that's where it's got to go, because if it's all rookie second team, I'm thinking, he had a really solid rookie year off the bench for the Pistons. If it's first team, if he's one of the 5 best rookies in the eyes of the voters, I don't think it's going to come from volume. I think it's got to be some ridiculous scenario where he earns and usurps whoever's the starting shooting guard on the team and then just takes over the rest of the way. Like up till, say, maybe the All-Star break, he's playing really, really well off the bench. And then maybe there's an injury or something that launches him into the starting lineup and he never gives it back up. That's probably the only way I can see it happening, because as OG unnamed YouTube user, says the Pistons just have too many guards for him to be getting a ton of playing time unless something went very wrong. Like, I think he's going to play, but in order to get the volume, he'd need to really earn your top 5 rookie. He's probably got to be up over 20 minutes a night. I doubt it unless something crazy happens like that.
Yeah, I asked Trajan at the at the draft night press conference, what his confidence was that late in the postseason, because we have seen a lot of young guys like carve out and have a lot of success within playoff rotations, but he wasn't really committal. Obviously, very early. It was literally the night he drafted him, so of course you're not going to be committal at that point. But it's like, coming in, it's like they are very much, I think, going to be playing it slow and letting Ibuka come along. And especially when you have a team, that's like in these like high leverage situations, like last thing you want to do is just force a young guy out there just for the sake of doing it because he's a rookie.
Yeah.
All right. I want to do a negative one real quick. Robbie, do you want to jump in, or do you want to move on
because
to the next one?
real quick, I was going to say, to your point, Wes, I think I agree to where I think if he's making first team all rookie, he looks so good before the All-Star break or whatever that it's like, hey, we can't keep this guy on the bench anymore. And maybe you're trading Duncan at the deadline for depth, in the forward room or something like that. And you're starting Ibuka and Cade, for the last 30 games of the season. So that's the only way that I see him doing that is the same thing as to what you said, is like, he's got to have enough playing time and he looks good enough to earn it, right? That it's like, hey, we can't keep this guy on the bench any longer, but maybe we're speaking it into existence here. We're manifesting that he's going to be on the first team by the end of the year. So
speaking of speaking into existence, Michael Dompier, OG unnamed YouTube user, we are not reading those comments out loud. You know what you wrote, and we're not talking about it. But I want to bring up a bad one. I want to do a negative thing here. He was talking about a Cade injury. We're not talking about it. I want to do a bad one. Let's say the season ends. If the season ends and the Pistons drop to a bottom 10 offense in the NBA, Sean, what had to have happened? What went wrong?
I think injury would have had to have certainly played a part. I think when you have a guy like Cade Cunningham on your roster, like, in my opinion, that should at the very least put you in the top 16, top 18 when you have that type of playmaker and that type of, all-star scorer. I think you would have to have missed him for significant periods of time, but I think also you would just really have to see that lack of a secondary ball handler really come into itself. Like, it would have to be the Murphy's Law of, not to make fun of my last name, but it's like you would have to have Asar, if anything, regress as a ball handler, which with the way he works, I just don't see that happening. But, Jalen Duren, like, you would almost have to have like a Ben Simmons type, like seeing ghosts type of experience where he's like fundamentally different as a player moving forward. I think you would have to see a mixture of injuries, but also just, I think everything that can go wrong would have to go wrong. The acquisitions just not fitting well, still not really getting shots made from Kevin Huerters of the world. If Duncan Robinson, has a stretch like he did in Miami a couple of years ago where he was out of the rotation altogether because he couldn't hit threes, like, you would just like, there would have to be some boogeymen type scenarios, in my opinion, because I do think just even with like the easy opportunities they create on the defensive side, like with the transition points alone, that should keep you out of the bottom 10. But again, it is something where if teams are able to limit that, if the Pistons do notice the lack of, Isaiah Stewart's of the world, and they do see a drop in performance defensively, that could be a part of that as well, because their biggest weapon has been the turnovers they create on the defensive side of the floor.
Sean, with Murphy's Law, I did not think you were going to reference your last name and we're going to reference something else. Do you know what I'm thinking of in reference to?
Oh boy.
We talked about it earlier during the show. You as a Nolan head.
Oh, yep. I was going to say you're thinking
Interstellar,
and
yep. Murphy's Law.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd be there like Christopher. I'd be there like Matthew McConaughey on the other side. Like,
yeah. Don't make that trade, Trajan. Don't do it.
I was afraid you were going to go to Tenet or something there. I'm just glad it was a good one with Interstellar.
Whoa! Don't talk trash about.
Yeah,
Tenet.
that's right.
Anyway.
That's right.
He went there. I think so. I think I'm riding the Asar hype train this summer of like it seems like the front office is huge on the Asar hype train of like, let's give as much shooting as possible around these guys. Let's give Asar the ball some more and let's see what happens, right? Like I think offensively, he probably has the most room to grow. His ceiling is the furthest away from any player right now on the offensive side of the ball. I think if they're I don't think they're putting all their eggs in one basket in terms of Asar. I think they're putting probably more eggs into the Asar basket moving forward, especially with like on ball and giving him more opportunities to kind of be that secondary or tertiary playmaker next to Duran. I think if they are a bottom 10 offensive unit, the Asar experiment has gone horribly wrong. I think his tight handle or his handle stays loose. I don't think he's developed much of like a mid-range game, kind of some type of floater, some type of, right. If I don't know if he developed any type of a handle at that point, if they're about, I just think kind of not handing the keys to Asar, but giving him more opportunities in the offense. I think it would have gone horribly wrong if they are a bottom 10 team. And I think it would be due to all of Asar's offensive limitations. Basically, just we're seeing all of that at an increased volume and kind of seeing no development from Asar on the offensive end.
I'd also think you'd have to see Danis Jenkins going back to being, like less of a factor. I think you'd have to see, because I happen to think, he'll probably go in the other direction of being more consistent. And, now that this
Less
will be
streaky,
yeah, exactly. Like he had like 23 combined minutes his first season in the NBA. Last year was really his rookie year for all intents and purposes. So I expect better performance, but it's like you would have to see regression from Jenkins, and you would have to say, well, Okori spent a lot of the season with the Crews.
Yeah, because they really have no other options, right? I mean, we've exhausted it. If Duran can't take more of the secondary playmaking, if Asar can't, if Okori's not ready, and if Jenkins regresses,
we're in trouble.
Kevin Huerter, does that that is I think really the one big, at least offensive weakness, right? Where because they've added more shoot. I think I'm with you guys. I think that would have to be it. Let's do two more. Robbie, you could pick, then I got one in my head to close out.
Okay, hopefully I'm not taking
big
yours.
Pressure, don't take it.
Yeah, you threw this one in here, and I really like this one. So, Sean, we get to the end of the year, and the Pistons have a player who has won the Most Improved Player award.
I'll find a new one.
Wes, it was yours? Sean, if they have a Most Improved Player, who would it be?
I think it's because Asar Thompson has the breakout year. I think we all brace for the potential of happening, because he already has established himself as one of, if not, in my opinion, the best perimeter defender in basketball at just 22 years old. Like the things he was doing in that playoff run last year was just downright filthy. They legitimately, like Cleveland said themselves, they had to like just say, hey, move away from Asar. Wherever he is, that's where the ball is not going to be.
Yeah.
And so the fact that like you have to play that type of that you have to scheme that way offensively for someone on the defensive side of the floor, it's like I think there already is a lot of that there. And then you throw in the intangibles of the work ethic, the confidence, and I think like looking at the fact that like this is really like the first summer, no restrictions, like full go, no worries from the blood clot thing at all. And like I think just if he can become a 15 to 20 point a night scorer along with what he already does for you defensively, if he becomes like a budgeting, like borderline or all-star caliber player, that's your most improved player. Duran was already in the conversation. He would have to take like a gargantuan step to be a most improved player candidate again. So I just don't really see that happening. So to me, it's like the only possible logical candidate, unless again, like Danis Jenkins comes out and has like a crazy year or something unforeseen. Like Asar's the guy.
And something to that too, because Dyson Daniels, right, a couple years ago wins most improved player. And at the time, the narrative at least was that, he wasn't the most improved, but he probably should have been defensive player of the year. They just couldn't really give it to, so they gave him as kind of like here, take this one. You still get a postseason award, like an end of season award. So like that could be, I could see that path. The only other possible, I know we're seeing a lot of Ron Holland in the comment. I would love that. I'd love for Ron Holland to take that kind of step. I'd probably put him on like fourth on my list. There would be four players I think could theoretically get this. The top two would be who I'm going to talk about real quick. Isaiah Joe. I think if he starts and gets a lot more volume, there's a little bit of an on-ball ability there, at least as a scorer, where I think, hey, maybe he can unlock and tap into some of that. So that's possible if he takes a really big scoring bump.
If he's like a Nikhil Alexander Walker.
Yeah, exactly. With worse defense, but offensively anyway, he could make that kind of leap. I think there's enough in there where maybe it's possible. And then it's Asar Thompson, Danis Jenkins, and Ron Holland. To me, I think Ron Holland's got to be at the bottom of that list, right? I mean, in terms of offensive load of those four players, he's projecting to have by far the least, right? And we're not even saying Asar's going to have a lot. I think Ron's just really in a specialist role.
I love Ron's energy and love the intensity he plays with. He does a lot of things he can't teach, but at the same time, I do think if he was most improved player, like worthy, I think we would have seen those types of flashes by now. I know I know a lot of those times I know a lot of times it's like an out of nowhere player, but it's like we knew Nikhil Alexander Walker was a good player before he became most improved. Even Dyson Daniels, it's like there were still a lot of beliefs in what he can do there. It's like Ron Holland was like a top 5 pick in like what's probably the worst draft class of the last decade. So like, I don't know what as much as I'm confident in what he can do, I don't know what the confidence meter is around the league for that.
Yeah, I would jump from one hype train, the Asar hype train. I'm going to go to the Isaiah Joe hype train. So, Wes, I'm there with you, but I think he has to start. And I want Isaiah Joe to start. And I think it's really because I want Duncan to provide more size with the bench unit, since the bench unit is just kind of small right now. But I've said it a couple times on this podcast. Malik Beasley came onto the team and he instantly set the record for most threes made in Detroit Pistons history. Duncan Robinson joins the team and he becomes second. So playing next to Cade Cunningham, if you are a movement shooter, you're going to get threes up. He's going to find you the ball. And just given that Isaiah Joe played his way kind of out of the playoff rotation for OKC, if he were to then come here and start and kind of be given his biggest workload of his career, playing next to, a point guard that averages 9-10 assists per game, I just think he's going to have as many opportunities as possible. And as someone who's made 40% from 3 of the last 4 seasons, like, man, I'm pumped about Isaiah Joe. Every time he's going to catch it, I'm going to want him to shoot it. I'm going to always want to see him let it fly.
It is really intriguing to think what he can do with that expanded type of role, because he was just part of one of the deepest rotations in the history of basketball with what we saw in Oklahoma City. So it's like, I think that we're going to see, I think there's like a very real chance that we could see like Atlanta could be a much better team because of the guys that they went out and got from Oklahoma City. But it's like also too, it's like, I think there's a very realistic chance that the Pistons just got an awesome player, essentially, really for free for all intents and purposes, just taking on salary. So yeah, I think they got to feel pretty freaking good about that.
All right, Sean, let's end on this one. I was really curious to get your perspective on it. I was excited when I thought of this one, but let's say we get to the end of the season and things went exactly the way you expected them to go. Tell me what happened.
The way I expect this season to go is I think that they will have made the conference finals, or right on the doorstep to a finals appearance, but ultimately come up just short. Whoever that's to, if I'm being honest with you, no idea. It could be, you could have me buy into the hype of the 76ers and say that they make a finals run. Like this East is so top heavy, and like there's not a lot of things that are really separating the top teams from each other right now, to where I don't really know who my favorite is. But I feel pretty confident in saying that the Pistons are in a position to take another step. And like, would it be disappointing to some people if they made a conference finals and didn't make it any further? Maybe, but like, I would argue that that's a massive success. I mean, getting to the conference finals in itself is a really hard thing, but also it's like this team already was a game away from that before making any substantial moves. And so I think that the way I expect this season to go is I think we continue to see Cade. I think we see Cade establish himself as the best player in the East. And I think that becomes abundantly clear by game 50. Like, as good as Giannis is, as great as Tatum and Brown and all these other guys are, it's like, I think Cade will be standing in a league of his own, like by the time we're at All-Star break, when we're looking at the East. I expect Asar to have a big season. My biggest concern is just what this looks like with Duren, as far as how you're going to be able to bring him in to the fold, as far as what the contract looks like. And can you repair the relationship enough to still get the best out of him? Because we've seen, like with like the DeAndre Aytons of the world, when guys don't necessarily get their way or their feelings get hurt through certain things, it just changes the way they approach coming to work every day. And as much as I don't want that to be the case with Jalen Duren, you got to acknowledge at the very least that it's a realistic possibility.
All right. I think I was more hoping we could end on that really awesome Cade Cunningham note, but I guess on that kind of more concerning note, I think we do have to close it out. But Sean, thank you so much for coming on, man. Always love having you on the show. Can you let everyone know where they can find your work, where they can find your podcast, and all the great coverage you're going to be doing this season for the Detroit Pistons?
Hey, appreciate you guys having me. This is a lot of fun. You can find my podcasts From Half Court wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube is going to be the main platform. You can also follow myself on Twitter at Sean Half Court, and you can also follow me on Substack, the From Half Court Substack. Going to be doing a lot more writing this season, so stay tuned for that. But thanks for having me, boys. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Sean, thanks for coming on, man. We totally appreciate it. And guys, remember, if you want to call into the show, if you want to leave a voicemail, make sure to call 313-355-2717.
Keep it around a minute.
Yeah,
keep it around a minute. We loved listening to it, but
gotta fit it on the show.
Yeah, we gotta make it happen.
Families. They have lives to attend to.
Big thank you to Sean Corp, our managing editor over at Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to the chat for contributing. Great questions and talking points. We will catch you guys next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We cannot wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you.